everyone, and welcome to another video.
Think I know you better to forget her. Certain people made for running. Think I need you more than let you know I'm bored and tell me this means more than nothing.
So today I'm going to be talking about the top 21 books I want to read in 2021. So I compiled this list in no specific order. It's just some books that I've seen in the past year that I really want to get to in the coming year. Because there are 21 books on this list, I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as I can so this video isn't ages long. So to start off, the first book I have on this list is Stolen, A Letter to My Captor by Lucy Christopher. This is a story that follows a 16-year-old girl who was kidnapped from an airport and taken to the Australian outback. And her captor, Ty, he's been planning this kidnapping for years, and his goal is to make her fall in love with him. The story is written in the form of letters from Gemma, the captee's perspective, to Ty during that time of her capture. And I want to give some trigger warnings really quick for kidnapping, suicide, and Stockholm Syndrome. I think this book sounds really interesting, so I'm looking forward to getting to it. Next I have Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. So I'm really excited to read this one because I loved Nina LaCour's book, We Are Okay, and so I'm really excited to see what she will do in other books. This story follows a girl named Mila who agrees to live and work on a remote farm after she graduates high school and ages out of the foster care system that she's been in, but she didn't know about the ghosts. While on this farm, she finds out that it's haunted by the traumas of the past young residents who have worked there, and Mila's past herself even starts to get dragged up as well. And I want to give a trigger warning for discussion of past abuse. Next I have Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. So from what I gather, this is sort of a fun and fluffy contemporary. It's about a girl named Bailey who is a classic film buff and has spent months crushing on this guy she's been speaking to online named Alex. So two coasts separate Bailey from Alex, but she actually ends up moving to his hometown when she decides to go live with her dad. But she doesn't tell Alex that she moved to his hometown because, hey, he might be a serial killer. She doesn't know. So she actually ends up getting a job at a local museum and then starts to have a sort of enemy relationship with this guy named Porter who works there, who is a security guard. And now she has to choose whether or not to cling to her online relationship with Alex or to see how this enemies to lovers relationship with Porter is going to go. But Porter has a secret as well. He's actually Alex. Approximately. So I think this is going to be a very fun, fluffy contemporary, and also I've heard that Jen Bennett likes to give her characters unique hobbies, and so I'm really excited to see that play out in this story. Next I have Tiny Pretty Things by Danielle Clayton and Sona Chirai Potra. So I put this on this list because I've heard lots of good things about it and I do want to read it, but also it's more pressing because I know that they're releasing a Netflix show and I want to read it before I watch the show. So this book is set at a Manhattan ballet school and you follow three different characters, Gigi, Bet, and June, and their experiences within the school. So Gigi wants to dance, but that very act might kill her. Bet wants to escape the shadow of her older sister who is a ballet star, and June needs to get the lead this year, otherwise her mother will put an end to her dream as a dancer forever. So this book sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun and filled with gossip and drama, and I'm here for it. Next I have Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. So this book follows two friends, Mila and Riley, who spend most of their time practicing amateur witchcraft. However, when Riley and two other mean girls die under suspicious circumstances, Mila refuses to believe that her best friend would be a part of a suicide pact. So, using her witchcraft, Mila brings Riley and those two other girls back to life so they can find out what happened the night that they died. But, unfortunately, the girls don't really remember what happened that night, and so now Mila and the girls have 7 days to figure out what happened before those girls go back to their graves. So I didn't really know much about this book before doing some research and writing this script, but now that I have read the synopsis and I'm like really excited to read this one, it sounds really interesting, and witchcraft and undead, like, I'm really excited for it. Next I have From Twinkle with Love by Sandhya Menon. So this follows a story of a girl named Twinkle who aspires to be a filmmaker. And when a fellow film geek, Sahil, asks Twinkle to direct a movie for the upcoming film festival, of course Twinkle is so excited to do it, and plus she'll get to spend a little bit of closer time with her crush, who is Sahil's brother. And when a mystery man starts emailing Twinkle, she's sure it's her crush, Neil. But now she has a problem because she might be falling for Sahil. The story is written in letters from Twinkle to famous filmmakers. So this sounds like it's going to be a really fun time, and I'm really excited to read it because I have read When Diplomat Were She, and I really liked that one, so I'm excited to see how I feel about this one. So the next two books on this list kind of go together because they are Dumplin and Puddin by Julie Murphy. So Dumplin follows a girl named Willow Dean, who is a self-proclaimed fat girl and has always been very comfortable in her skin. And with her best friend Ellen at her side, there is nothing they can't do. Until she takes a job at a local fast food place and starts to fall for a former jock named Bo. So instead of being her normal confident self, she actually starts to doubt herself. And in order to take back that confidence, she does the most terrifying thing she can think of and enters a beauty pageant. Now, Puddin is a companion novel to Dumplin, and it follows a supporting character in Dumplin named Millie. And so Millie has gone to fat camp every year, but this year she has different plans. She wants to chase her secret dream and kiss her crush. And when circumstances bring her together with Callie, who is the pretty girl and also next in line to be the head of the dance team, they realize that they have more in common than you might think. So I really think that these books are going to be fun, but also sort of impactful because they will be promoting body positivity, and I am very much appreciative of that. Next I have Icy London, Icy France by Sarah Mlynowski. So this follows a 19-year-old girl named Sydney who has her whole summer planned because she's going to be traveling across Europe with her best friend Leela. But her plans do not include Leela's cheating ex-boyfriend coming on to their flight to London, or that Sydney is going to start falling for Leela's ex-boyfriend's friend, or that she'll have to end up dealing with her mom's unstable mental health. So this book sounds like it's going to be a pretty fun time, and I am really excited to read it because I think it might be good for me to read a travel novel because right now travel is not a thing, and so I think it might be good for me to live vicariously through the books because I'm a little sick of being stuck in my dorm. The next two books I have on this list are two World War II historical fictions, both by Monica Hesse. The first one is The War Outside, and this one is set at internment camps in Texas, and it follows two characters, one is German and one is Japanese, as they are going through their daily lives within these internment camps. So this one really intrigues me because usually World War II historical fictions take place with the Nazis and the Jews and the concentration camps and all that stuff. So I think that this is really going to uncover a side of the horrendous things that happened during World War II that you don't usually see that often, and I think that it's a very important thing to read about. Now, the other book I have is They Went Left by Monica Hesse, and so this is also a World War II historical fiction, and it follows a girl who has recently been liberated from a concentration camp, and she is in search of her brother because they are the only two remaining people from their families because the rest of their family members were immediately sent to the gas chambers upon going to the concentration camp. So obviously these two are both going to be very sad books, but also I think really important to read about. Next I have My Plain Jane by the Lady Janies, or Cynthia Hand, Jody Meadows, and Brody Ashton. So if you don't know, the Lady Janies series is a series of companion novels that follows famous Janes throughout history. And so because they're companion novels, you don't really need to read them in any specific order. So this book is actually the second book in the series, but like I said, you don't have to read them in a specific order, and I chose this one because it sounded the most interesting to me. So this is a Jane Eyre retelling where poor Jane gets a job as a governess, and she meets Mr. Rochester and all the different events that happen in classic Jane Eyre. But there's a twist. There are ghosts in this story, and that just sounds really exciting. So I haven't actually read Jane Eyre, but when I was in high school, one of my teammates on my speech team did Jane Eyre as a humorist. And so I kind of get the gist of the story because I've seen her humorous quite a few times. I also don't really read retellings very often. They're just not something I gravitate towards. So I'm really interested in reading this one, but also just a little bit nervous to step outside my comfort zone. So we'll see how it goes. Next I have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. So this story follows two characters, Pepper and Jack, haha, Pepper Jack, who are part of two separate families who own rival restaurants. And when Pepper's family supposedly steals the secret recipe to Jack's family's famous grilled cheese recipe, they get into a Twitter battle. But, however, Pepper and Jack also start to develop a romance. So I think that this one sounds like very cute and fluffy and fun, and I'm just really excited to get to this one. Next I have Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian. So this one is set in 1989 New York City at the height of the AIDS crisis. And it follows three teenagers, Riza, Judy, and Art. So Riza is an Iranian boy who just moved to New York City and is gay, but he's also a little scared because he is seeing all these images and stories of men who are gay and have AIDS and their struggles with it. So he's really worried about that. Judy is an aspiring fashion designer whose uncle Steven also is gay and has AIDS and spends his time as an activist. And Judy's best friend Art is the only openly gay teen in their high school, and he is rebelling against his parents by documenting the AIDS crisis through taking photographs. So I think this is going to be an important read because I've never really read or, for that matter, learned anything about the AIDS crisis, and obviously that was a very important part of our history and is still an important issue today. And so I think that this is an important thing for me to learn about through reading this book. Next on this list, I have Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. So this book follows the story of Mary, who allegedly killed a baby when she was 8 years old, and she's been in jail ever since then. But once she gets out of jail, she meets a guy, and they have a relationship, and she ends up getting pregnant, but the state is threatening to take away her unborn child because of the things that happened in her past. And so now she has to dredge up those things and those lies and those allegations of things that happened in her past in order to keep her baby. And her fate lies in the hands of the one person she trusts the least, her mother. I've heard this book is very shocking and also very polarizing because you spend the whole time trying to figure out whether or not Mary did what people say she did, and it just is a very intriguing book to me. So I want to give some trigger warnings here for abuse, talk and attempt of rape, and animal abuse. Next we have The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. So this is the second book in a series of poetry collections. I do have the first book and I've read the first one. It's called The Princess Saves Herself in this one. I don't know if you necessarily have to read them in order. They might just be companion poetry collections. But I'm really excited to read this one because I took a poetry class last semester and I learned a lot about how to write poems and how to analyze poems and how to use the form of your poem to enact the content of your poem. And I really enjoyed taking that class and learning a lot about poetry. So I'm excited to continue what I know and what I've learned from that class outside of the classroom and to continue in reading poetry collections. The next book on my list is Never Said by Carol Lynch Williams. So this book was actually recommended to me by one of my roommates, and I was really excited when I found out that the author of this book is actually the author of one of my other favorite books, Waiting. I'm really excited to see what this author will do in this book. This book, Waiting, is written in verse, and I don't know if Never Said is written in verse or not, but either way I'm still gonna read it and I am just really excited about it. So I guess we'll see if it's written in verse. And I actually do technically have a copy of this book. I ordered one very recently and it just hasn't shipped to me yet as of when I'm filming this, but I do have a copy of it technically. I just can't hold it up because I don't have it yet. So this follows a girl named Sarah whose life has always revolved around her twin sister Annie, who is the pretty one, the social one, and the person that everyone wishes Sarah could be. But when Annie chops off her hair, quits the beauty pageants, and gains some weight, the focus changes and Annie is still the star of the family, but for all the wrong reasons. So Sarah knows that something's happening with Annie, but she's too caught up in her own troubles to really worry about it. So Annie is determined to keep her secrets to herself. But when she and Sarah finally start spending time together for the first time in years, the walls start to break on both sides. So I'm really excited to read this one, to see what this author can do with other stories, and if I will like it as much as I love Waiting. Next I have The Thousandth Floor by Katherine McGee. So this is the first book in a sort of futuristic trilogy that I've heard is a mix of Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, and The Selection. And I have read The Selection recently and I really enjoyed it, so I'm kind of excited to read this one. So it's set in a futuristic society where there's a tower in New York City that's 1,000 floors high. And everything is inside the tower, like Central Park and anywhere you need to be. So if you live in the tower, you don't really need to leave the tower in order to do the things you need to do. Also, your placement in the tower represents your sort of class rank. So if you live on the very top floor, you're the top person in the society, but if you live on a lower floor, you're very poor, lower class, and that kind of thing. So this story actually follows 5 characters who live on different floors. 4 of the characters live in the higher portion of the building, and they are this really close, tight-knit group of friends. But when a girl from one of the lower levels sort of infiltrates her way into that friend group, things start to happen. Next on this list is Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. and illustrated by Fiona Staples. This is a comic graphic novel series that is a sci-fi series that takes place in a world where there are two planets that are at war with each other. And that's all I really know about it. I don't really read a lot of graphic novels / comic books, so I kind of want to like branch out and read some new things. But I also wanted to let you know that this is a very adult series. There's a lot of adult content, and it's very not safe for work, so just be aware it's more mature content. Alright, we're almost done. So next on this list I have Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. So this is the third book in the Cassidy Blake series, but it actually doesn't come out until March 2nd, but I am so excited for when it comes out because I really, really enjoy this series. So for this video, I'm actually going to talk about the first book in the series as to avoid spoilers. So this is a middle grade series that follows a girl named Cassidy Blake who can see ghosts. And coincidentally, her parents are very famous authors of a novel series about ghost hunting. And in the first book, her parents are offered a deal to shoot a TV show where they hunt ghosts in like famous haunted areas of the world. But they don't know that their daughter can see ghosts and has a ghost best friend. So each of the books in this series follow Cassidy and her family to different portions of the world where they try to film and deal with ghosts. I have read the first two books in this series and I'm just really, really pumped for the third book to come out and to read that. I love this series. The first book actually got me out of a reading slump, and it's just like super easy to read because they're middle grade and they're very quick pace. Lots of things happen and I just really enjoy them, so I'm excited for this one to come out. And last on this list is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So here's another Victoria Schwab book, but this one is an adult book that follows two best friends, Victor and Eli, who are in college and believe that under the right conditions, people can develop special abilities. So this is what they're working on for their thesis, for their degrees. But their thesis moves from academic to more experimental, and that's when things start to go wrong. So then we have a separate timeline that takes place 10 years later after Victor gets out of jail, and now he's dead set on finding Eli, his former best friend, but now an enemy, along with the help of a girl who has abilities. So I'm really excited to read this one. I love Victoria Schwab's writing, if you couldn't tell by the book I just talked about. And I will actually be reading it very soon because this is our January book of the month for the Paperback book club. And so I will have to read it before the live show. But before I finish talking about it, I want to give some trigger warnings for animal death, graphic scenes, murder, self-harm, suicide, and violence. Okay, so that is it for the 21 books that I'm hoping to get to in 2021. It was a very long video and a lot of books to talk about, but I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, please make sure you are subscribed down below so you don't miss any future bookish content from me this year. And if you want to follow me on social media, all my links are in the description box down below as always. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
All you see is black roses. Couldn't remember things so bad. Don't ask for something more than yours.